A Mochi moment from Mark, who writes, I just want to thank you for making GLP-1s affordable. What would have been over $1,000 a month is just $99 a month with Mochi. Money shouldn't be a barrier to healthy weight. 3 months in, and I have smaller jeans and a bigger wallet. You're the best. Thanks, Mark. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Mark is a Mochi member compensated for his story.
I'm no tech genius, but I knew if I wanted my business to crush it, I needed a website now. Thankfully, Bluehost made it easy. I customized, optimized, and monetized everything exactly how I wanted with AI. In minutes, my site was up. I couldn't believe it. The search engine tools even helped me get more site visitors. Whatever your passion project is, you can set it up with Bluehost. With their 30-day money-back guarantee, what do you got to lose? Head to Bluehost.com. That's BLUEHOST.com to start now.
Hi there, and thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast. We feature those who are in the process of overcoming or have overcome any type of life encounter, life obstacle that at the time seemed to be almost insurmountable. With this podcast, we have 3 objectives in mind. Our first objective is we want you to know with a confident resolve you are not alone. We want to work with you. We want you to know there are others who are working with you, who want to help you through whatever you are encountering, and together we will get through whatever you're experiencing.
Our second objective is there are multiple options for any life encounter you are facing. We want to help you develop a resolve that there are various options and solutions to any life dilemma.
Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If you're encountering something that was possibly a decision you made sometime in the past, and if you had the opportunity for a life redo, you would make a different decision. We want to help you with those critical thinking skills that can help you make an informed decision and not encounter what you're going through at the moment. We are the Cooper Culture, a veteran-owned business. We work with business personnel and families to develop and sustain connected relationship cultures within their families and organizations. That type organization is one where people feel wanted, appreciated, and genuinely a part of that organization. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty, who is helping me facilitate this podcast. Today we feature Michelle Choairy, who talks to us about her son who was diagnosed when he was 8 years old. As of this recording, he's 11 years old. But he was diagnosed with TBR1, a very rare genetic disorder. She discusses with us how she is raising her son while learning about TBR1 and how to adjust to him and the neural effects on him. As she explains, there are times when every day is like 1 hour at a time. It's a very informative broadcast where we learn how to deal with those who are neurologically and, in her son's case, genetically, a little different from us. Marty, what are some takeaways we can learn from Michelle?
Michelle just dove into her son and tried to find out everything she could about him to help him. She did say that TBR1, a developmental pediatric practitioner, is someone to go to because they know the most about this particular, I don't want to say disorder, but this particular challenge that children with this TBR1 have. She's remarkable in what she's done, and she is helping parents, which parents go through a lot. So I admire her for taking this on and just bringing it out to the world for the parents.
It's a great opportunity to learn together through Michelle and her life experiences. She is a very aggressive learner, as we all need to be. Let's listen and learn together. Michelle, it is just great to have you. We and our listeners are going to learn a lot about people, genetic anomalies. I'm going to call it an anomaly, maybe disorders,
Mm-hmm.
but just how different people are created and we are who we are. But your son, if I'm understanding correctly, has the very rare, if I could call it that, unusual TPR1 disorder. And we're very interested in learning about how that manifests itself, how you as a mom raise him, how you communicate with him, and maybe some of the challenges you have to let's say communicate and
Mm-hmm.
and so forth. But I know a lot of our listeners have children or their caretakers for autistic children and so forth. Michelle, Marty, and I are the type that we want to learn about people, adapt to, and just learn how we can help other people. Michelle, welcome aboard. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's already been a great conversation and we haven't even started.
Tell us about TPR1, just what that is for those of us who are maybe have heard of it or don't even know what it is.
So it's a rare genetic disorder that is, it's a, it's one chromosomal issue. So what happened was when my son was conceived, something got like one little letter got switched, and we found that out when he was 8 years old. From the time he was born, he was born premature. He was 32 weeks. He was in the NICU for 4 weeks, and he was very small. He was only 3 pounds when he was born. And so we like kind of, we of course we started with the NICU, and then we brought him home. And then we could tell that there was something going on. And then at 18 months, he's not eating correctly. Like there's something going on. And I'm like, something is up. And then it gets, we get closer to like 2, 2.5. And I'm like, he's not talking. There's something going on here. And then I'm going and I'm trying to find help. And everybody's just like, oh, he's just going to be a late talker. So and so, didn't start talking until they're 5. It's going to be fine. And I kept going and I kept going, and I can tell you the whole entire story. But what I'm telling you, this whole thing is that we start noticing things when kids are pretty young. And sometimes they want to either push it off like it's not a big deal. And that's usually until they're about 3 or 4 years old. And then when they get to that age, they're like, oh no, okay, there's something here. So let's go back. And you missed that whole entire window of the early intervention that could have happened. So parents, this is what I tell my parents all the time, the parents that I work with, is you have that gut, that mama gut, you feel like there's something going on, follow it through. Because I'm telling you, those early years are the most important years for any of these kids. And even if they don't have anything, even if it turns out to be nothing, at least you followed your gut and you looked for this, right? So it wasn't until he was 8 years old that we found out that he had TBR1. And had we tested a couple of years before, it would have come back negative. Like we wouldn't have known, because it's such a rare new disorder that they couldn't even test for it until a couple of years before we got the diagnosis. So it is that rare. He is the only one in the world that we know of with his specific variant in the TBR1 world. And TBR1 is kind of like a spectrum. So you have the the severe kids, and you have the mild kids. And Drake is kind of in the mild, moderate side, because he walks, he talks, the communication, he still has to work on speech therapy, but it's, he goes to school, he has friends, he can take a bath by himself. On the severe side of TBR1, they're not like that. Some kids can't walk, some kids can't really eat well. And so there is a very wide spectrum there. So that's a little bit about, I probably talked too much and there's so much to unpack there. So I'm going to let you ask some questions.
Thank you for that. as you are explaining, and I'll make sure that you and our listeners know I'm a rank novice at this. I feel like I want to learn with every conversation. But as you are describing your son, you, I can just sense, are describing some characteristics of autism. And
Hmm.
is there a very distinct difference between TBR1 and autism? And then I guess my follow-on question, Michelle, is it only genetic testing where you can determine is it a genetic issue or autism? And I'm at a point where, Michelle, I'm not even sure how to ask my question.
Okay, so let me talk you through this a little bit because there's a lot here, right? First of all, it's a genetic disorder. How many of us have heard of somebody that has a genetic disorder? Not very many of us, right? This is new. It was new to me. It's new to a lot of people that I talk to. So a genetic disorder just that's what it is. Like when they were formed, when they were, the egg was formed, something changed, and it actually happened at that time. It doesn't happen later on. It's just something just, as he was created, this was done. The little letter was inverted. Some people they miss the whole entire gene. Some people have a deletion. Some people have some, and then they have different letters. There's so much. There's so much there that like you would probably need a genetic, a genetic class, a genetics class to understand and unpack all of that. But the interesting thing that you were saying is that you have so many characteristics that are like autism, right? And that is one of the things that when you look at the TBR1, how it presents itself on children, that is actually one of the things that they say, autistic traits. They don't say autism, they say autistic traits because not all kids that have TBR1 will have autism. But my kid, he has an autistic trait, and that is that he perseveres in certain things. So, like, his iPhone, he has like this thing with his iPhone, and he obsesses over iPhones. And then he'll pass over, and then it's not the iPhone anymore. Now it's his elf. We actually have an elf on the shelf at the house year round because that's his best friend. And so he comes and he stays all like during the whole year. So it's Christmas at our house all year long. So those things happen. And so those are some of the autistic traits. Now, what happened with us is that, once a child is about 3 or 4 years old and they're not talking, like my son he tried, he grunted, he couldn't get anything out. And so they diagnosed him with a motor planning problem, which is he knows what he wants to say, but the muscles in his mouth, they don't work to say what it is that he wants to say. So it's called a motor planning issue. And that was his very first diagnosis was childhood apraxia of speech. And that is something that's actually very common these days. But when a child is not speaking at about 3 or 4 years old, then they go straight to autism. This child has autism. And even though they're not, I mean, there's certain things, markers that you have to look for to get a child diagnosed with autism. But a lot of times it's kind of a spectrum. So they just kind of want to throw the child into that. And Marty, like I it wasn't the diagnosis that bothered me. It was that I just did not think that Drake fit into that diagnosis. And then I kept fighting and fighting and fighting. And like I said, it wasn't until he was 8 years old that we got approval from the insurance company to run this very thorough exome sequencing for genetics. And that's when we found out. And up until then, everything was negative. We did an MRI of his brain. We did an EKG. We did everything that we could have, and not everything was negative. And it was to the point that the geneticist called me, and I'm like, "Oh, it was negative, right?" And she's like, "Actually, it was positive." we found what has been causing all of these things. At the time, Drake was 1 out of 40 in the world diagnosed with this disorder. And to this day, the only thing that we really truly have is a Facebook group that is for TBR1 kiddos, and they are from all over the world. Now, since then, we are probably a little bit over 200, and Drake continues to be the only one with this specific variant. And there are a lot of kiddos that have just the specific, like their specific variants, but there are a few that actually have this, like that it's completely deleted. So they are in a different category.
Now, I need to ask you a very elementary question. The genetic disorder, is that permanent for life? It cannot be changed. You just have to learn to deal with it. Am I asking the right question?
You are. That's correct. You can't fix it, right? It's in your DNA, and to this day, it cannot be fixed. Will it be able to, are we going to be able to fix it in the future? Maybe. Like they are doing there's so much genetic studies being done in humans, in rats, and they're all in different levels. We don't know where this is going to take us, right, Ron? Like this is the incredible thing about humans and how we develop. We didn't know how to take care of a bacteria infection and people would die, right? Because we didn't have antibiotics. So who knows? Who knows where this is going to take us?
How old is your son now?
He's 11.
Okay. Can you project into his maybe 20s or so? Will he be independent? Can he be independent enough to live on his own? Do you foresee him being employable, drive a car, and so forth? Or do you have to take almost 1 hour at a time?
Over here in our house, we take 1 hour at a time. We really have to because sometimes, you never know what's going to hit you. I don't know. Do I have hopes? Yes. I think that we can help him be independent. I really truly think that we do. He can take a bath by himself. He can go in the fridge and make himself a sandwich. He can, we're teaching him how to turn on the stove in a way that, that is safe. And so we're doing all these things. And so I think that we will get there. I really truly think that we will get there. I don't know. That's a great question, and unfortunately, I don't know that I have the answer to that, right? Because we're just trying to figure it out as we go along.
For the listener whose child, biological or otherwise, is not relevant, but they have, let's say, some behavioral anomalies that, well, that everybody has their own version of whatever normal is. But let's just
Hmm.
say they start talking a little bit later in life, and they have some maybe obsessive compulsions, and oh, they're just a little bit different and so forth. And what I'm trying to lead up to, Michelle, is how would the caretaker, how would the parent, grandparent know whether to test for autism or genetic testing, or is it something that maybe you just have to go through a series of tests to determine exactly what things are?
So one of the things, Ron, is that unfortunately, insurance companies are complicated. And they are hard to deal with. So we had to go through a battery of things before we got to this because it was so expensive, right? It's such an expensive test to get this full exome testing. So we had to go through it. We had to do everything. So we did an MRI. We did uh, 48-hour EEG. Just all of these things that you have to do to get to a point. Now, this was, this was what, like 5 years ago, almost 4 years ago. And so I have noticed that the developmental pediatricians. So let me explain this a little bit because I think that this is very important for the listeners to listen to hear this. So pediatricians are great, right? Those are the people that you go to. But once your child starts having some kind of developmental delays or speech delays or any of that, it's time to go to what it's called a developmental pediatrician. And the reason is because the developmental pediatrician, they are board certified in that. They go to school for that, and they know how to treat kids with autism, ADHD, TBR1. Like they should know all of these things, right? So it is a different practice. It is a different uh, specialty when it comes to medicine. And everybody should have that. And they should be the ones leading this. So we went to a developmental pediatrician. We had to wait for a year to get into one because they were so backlogged. And so we waited and we got in, and that's when we started doing all these tests. And it takes time, right? It takes time to get into a developmental pediatrician. It takes time to do these testings. And now an autism testing is actually done, and it's called an ADOS, and there's different ways that they test for this. But those are tests that they can do in an office. But if you are trying to look for a genetic disorder, if you think that there's something there that's more than quote unquote autism, then you have to go through either a developmental pediatrician or a geneticist.
For the person listening whose son, daughter is just a little bit different, but you're not exactly sure what it is. Would you recommend having both or a series of tests, let's say a test for autism and do the genetic testing as well? And you've pretty clearly said genetic tests are very expensive, and I don't have any idea what it is, but even if the insurance company would not pay for it, do you see value in genetic tests that at least that can help you narrow into where this person is in life?
Yeah. So Ron, here's my thing. You don't know what you don't know,
Yep.
right? So I am a believer in finding out. Did we change anything from what we were doing before with him till like from before and after? We didn't. He continued to go to speech. He continued to go to OT. He continued to have the same interventions that he was having before the diagnosis. But now we know. And the more we know, the more we can do something about it. Not necessarily in terms of intervention, but in the world. Now we had 40 of us. Now we have 200 of us. And it's like, okay, like what do we do now? Like there are so many other genetic disorders out there, and they have their foundations, they have things that, how to raise money for that cause, so they can find cure, so they can find a way to help kids who have the disorder, but they can't afford whatever it is that they need. Like some of these kiddos, they need special beds. They need to have a lift because the parents can't carry the kids. And all of these things should be covered on an insurance, but a lot of them aren't. And so this is like, to me, as a mom, this I would like to know what it is. So if I were a parent, I would go and I would look for it. Some people just go, well, is it going to change? Probably not. So why would I want to know? That's fair, right? They don't need to. But I am the type A. I'm going to go look for it. I'm going to be an advocate for my child. And if this is what it is, I'm going to advocate for him, and I'm going to help people that have the same disorder as he does. And that's kind of what I started doing just a few years ago, I decided, like I need to help parents become advocates for their children. And so that's what I've been doing the last couple of years because I feel like this is a parent with a special needs child, a parent with a genetic disorder. This is what we need to become is an advocate for them.
And I will tell you, Marty and I applaud everything you're doing, what you just said, Michelle. Advocate for, we are just huge advocates of this. Now, I need to help you or ask you to help me understand because, again, I'm such a novice and I feel like I'm starting out at total zero on this. But genetic disorders or geneticism, and again, you may even have to help me phrase the question.
Mhm.
What I'm trying to discern is how do the genomes interact with the brain and affect the rest of the body and so forth. And I think ultimately what I'm building up to, Michelle, is that maybe in your hour to hour learning to adapt to and know your son, maybe you're thinking that, okay, this behavioral trait will not change. It cannot change. There's nothing in the brain. And again, Michelle, I feel like I don't even know how to phrase the question, but I'm always wondering, okay, how can we train the brain? But maybe there's something about geneticism that no, the brain and genetics don't function this way. I feel like I'm such a novice learner. I want to learn.
Yeah, no, hey, I think that a lot of people when you have the interest in learning things like you guys do, you guys bring in so many people into your podcast and talking about these things. We there's always a time to learn something, right, Ron? Like it's never we never know everything. And so I had to learn. I didn't know. I was looking, oh my gosh, what is this? And to be honest with you, this is going to sound funny, but he was born premature. We had all these things. And for many years, I thought that all the Taco Bell and the Dr. Peppers that I ate while I was pregnant with him was the reason why, it's like, because you want to blame yourself as a parent for this. And so, but then you don't know. So I mean, I had to learn that I'm okay eating Taco Bell, and drinking Dr. Pepper. So, but these things we learn. So, can the brain be trained? Absolutely. There is no doubt, right? Like I think that our brains are flexible enough and we are humans and I think that there's definitely everybody is going to learn something. Everybody will learn something in life. And so that's that's what gives me hope, right? Is that yes, we can teach the kiddos. Yes, we can change certain things. For the severely affected, it's going to be smaller gains. It's going to be smaller changes that you're going to see. But with the, mild affected ones, then you're going to see bigger gains. It really depends on where the disorder is, how it is. But here's the one thing that's important to know, Ron, is that there are kids, right? And we still need to celebrate every single little win. And it might take years for a win to happen. But if we don't celebrate those small wins on what is coming and what they do, it is a very rough, tough, dark road to go with.
And
So,
I'm going to ask you, do you work with parents? Because you just said this is a dark road, and we speak from experience with um, our daughter and son-in-law and what they are
mhm.
going through. Do you speak to parents and I guess have therapy with the parents? Because there's a lot of divorce rate with
Oh,
children and
yes.
they just and parents seem to just give up because
Hmm.
they don't understand. So
Yes.
you do provide help for the parent, right?
Yes. So what I started, it was, so I developed this program. It's called Thrive. And Thrive, it's supposed to kind of help the parents who have special needs kids to basically take care of themselves. Okay. So the T for it is you got to have a team around you and around your child. So, like, you have to have a good speech therapist. You got to get a good doctor. You have to develop that village on the medical side. Then then you go to E, which is, sorry, H. I'm like, I'm jumping to the end. I can't spell thrive. H, which is the help systems. And in the help systems, you have the school. There's so much to know. But in the help systems, you have the school information. So kids who have a disability, they have an IEP, which is an individualized educational, plan. So you have to learn how to deal with the school district. Then you also have to learn how to deal with the insurance companies because they don't agree to pay everything. So you have to learn how to deal with them. And then you have the state funded programs that are also available for parents. And most of them, probably 80% of them, they don't even know that they have this that they can use. So that is the H in Thrive. And I go through every single one of these with the parents. The I is the integration. And that for me is the most important thing. If you are not well as a parent, your child is not going to be well either. So you have to take care of yourself. So that's where the I comes in. The V is the validation. It kind of comes with what we were talking about, celebrating those small, small, small wins, because with those wins is what takes you to the next level. And then the E is the expect a miracle. And you will see if you celebrate those things, then the miracle will come one way or another. So this is what I teach them. And then I also do the part of the advocacy. So I am a special education, a non-attorney special education advocate. So I sit at the IEP meetings with the parents and I help them develop a good educational plan for them because I will tell you that 95% of the IEPs out there are awful. Awful. And the other part that I also help the parents because my background is in medical. I still have my day job of medical sales. So I do orthopedic sales and I work with orthopedic surgeons and I help them with the insurance part. So there's three levels. I teach the parent to become an advocate. I advocate for them. And then I also do the insurance part where it's like, okay, let's get you approved for this private provider. Do you have out of network benefits? How do we get you some money on that? So,
Do you have an in-depth program and maybe a multi-session program based on Thrive?
yes, yes, I do. That's my way of teaching parents what I have learned all these years, right? I teach them to do it. I will tell you that it can be overwhelming for parents, and that's why they actually started. That's all I was doing. I was just teaching them to become the advocate, the parent that just thrive. And then people started asking me, they're like, can you just do this for me? Can you just be in the IEP meeting? Can you review this? How do I get more speech therapy? How do I do this? And so that's when the advocacy part of my business kind of came in, is because of the requests that I was getting from the parents. But, it's been great for the parents who really get into this and they want to learn. I am here to teach you.
Michelle, I want to ask you, would you consider another episode where we focus on not to divulge everything, but you're doing a kind of a top level of Thrive so that our listeners know exactly what to expect because our one or more listeners may want to take a deeper dive into Thrive, which may be multiple months or some amount of time with you after they have a more top level understanding of what Thrive is. Even while we're recording, would you consider coming back for another episode?
Of course, you told me you were going to put me on the spot, Ron. So yes, I told you that I would do it. So yes, that's a yes, and I'm committing. So just let me know when we can do it, and I'm happy to do it because I think that getting the word out there to these parents who are they've gone through grief, right? They've grieved because this is and that's a whole other episode, Ron. So you're gonna have to ask me that next time too. But you go through the grieving process and then you have to do something about it, and that is how you get out of that. And Thrive is for that. So getting the word out that parents are not alone and that you can do this. You just have to have a little bit of help. That's what I'm trying to do. So please have me back 2, 3, 4 times, whatever you need me.
And I can foresee spending an entire session on grieving because the parent, the caretaker, whatever the function is, might say, well, my child is not normal. And, however we define normal. And now I'm having to adjust to this while everybody else out there, well, in fact, I know of some caregivers who say some people are no longer friends with me because my child is so different, and
Yep.
they choose to separate themselves.
And the thing is, this child knows they're being rejected.
Yep.
They're very smart. I'm going to say
Yep.
they're very, very smart. So the grief, and I didn't understand the grief until our daughter talked about grief.
It is. It's a grieving process.
And I'm going to say grandparents go through that too.
I think the whole family. It's impossible to not, like my 8-year-old is going through it right now, because she's finally understanding what's going on with her brother. So anyway, whole other episode. We'll come back.
Yes. Well, Michelle, on behalf of our listeners, I want to thank you to this point for sharing with us. We're looking forward to, I'm going to believe it's at least 2 more episodes where we talk about Thrive and grieving. I believe that's going to be 2 separate episodes. And I would bet you that there's a likelihood that other topics are going to come up from those conversations. But I want to thank you from the depth of our heart for sharing and just letting others know that yes, these people are there, but we need to learn to adapt to them because they're one of God's creations.
Thank you, Ron and Marty, for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate having the opportunity to share our and our guests' life's experiences with you.
The Cooper culture advances organizations to achieve and sustain high retention rates, connected communication, and trust through personality insights and principled leadership. You can contact us at our website, thecooperculture.com, and you can contact us directly at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, Marty, at thecooperculture.com. We work with you to help assess aspects of your culture to advance the environment and people to their best performance. We do that through our staff of certified personal performance coaches, leadership trainers, keynote speakers, and DISC personality behavior experts. You can book a speaking engagement directly through our website by contacting us at ron@thecooperculture.com. We look forward to sharing our life experiences with you, some of which are profound, some of which are pretty funny. Some of those life experiences are ones we'll never do that again because we've been through stuff. We truly look forward to working with you, speaking with you, helping advance you in any way that we can.